Over roughly the last week or so, we've had some extremely cold temperatures. High temps ranging from -5 to 0, low temperatures down to the negative teens. And over this last week of hunting, it's given me a really good opportunity to kind of put my layering system to the test and kind of confirm in a sense that I've made the right decisions. So what I want to do now is basically go through my entire layering system from base layers on up and just kind of explain why I've chosen certain layers the way I have, and hopefully it'll help you guys out too. Alright, so what I'm wearing right now is essentially my base system that I would be able to leave the truck with and head out into the woods. All my other garments, for the most part, I can pack in. What I'm wearing on the top is essentially 3 layers. I have 2 mid-weight merino garments. I have a first Lite Chama and also a Cabelas. They're both quarter zip, both in that 230 gram weight. And then I have the Cabelas Stand Hunter Fleece, which is a half zip, really high pile, heavy fleece. I have a couple pair of old Under Armour gloves that are essentially Prima Loft insulated. And then for the bottom, I have 2 pair of the First Lite Allegheny, which is their midweight merino bottom. And then I have just my standard hiking / hunting pants, which is the Cabelas Stalking pants. They're a nylon spandex blend, not insulated at all, but they're good with burrs, they're really tough. So I like to wear these while I'm out into the woods, just walking around, getting from A to B. For the socks, I just have a single pair of socks. Doesn't matter if it's 80 degrees out or if it's 15 below. I'm just wearing 1 pair of socks. The only thing that changes is the thickness of the sock and which boot I pair with it. So right now I'm wearing Alpaca blend, kind of a heavyweight sock. Merino blend socks are going to be good as well. The difference between Alpaca and merino is that the Alpaca basically has a hollow fiber. So in theory it can trap more air and be a little bit warmer than the same weight of merino. To be honest, my thought is that if you're going to get cold with one, you're going to get cold with the other, and it's your overall system that's kind of make a little bit bigger of a difference. But right now I'm wearing the Alpaca just because of that perceived benefit that could be there. So then another good question might be, why double up on the merino? It's not the most thermally insulating material, it's not windproof. Why not just wear 1 pair of merino and then go on top of that directly with a more insulating material and just keep on layering up that way? Well, essentially it's all about moisture transport and thermal regulation and getting from point A to point B. Oftentimes I'll be walking a long ways to get to where I'm going to hunt, and so I want a large comfort range, so to speak. If I were just to wear a single pair of merino and then go right to insulating layers, I'd be very likely on that walk in to essentially come to a point where, okay, I'm overheating now, I got to take one of these garments off. Whereas it seems like if I wear a lot of merino, I have a lot larger range before I get to the point where I either overheat or I'm too cold and I need to add something else on. Merino also maintains its warmth while it's wet, which is a big plus when really cold weather comes around. You could of course also just go with a single merino garment if you just increase the thickness of the material that you got. Like instead of going with 2 midweights, if I were just to go with 1 heavyweight, like 400 gram, that would definitely work too. It's just kind of the way that I bought my garments when I bought them. I already had 1 midweight, so it made sense to get another midweight. It's just kind of how I built my system. One other thing I'll do with the multiple base layers, when it gets really cold like this, I'll take one of these adhesive body warmers and I'll actually put it between the 2 merino layers and stick it kind of right over where my kidneys would be. The thought process behind that idea is that your kidneys filter your blood, so you have a lot of blood flow going through that region, and by heating that area of your skin, you could potentially start to heat up your core a little bit better. I'm not sure if the amount of heat transfer coming from this warmer is going to be enough to actually make that happen, or if it's just kind of a placebo effect, but qualitatively it does seem to make you feel quite a bit warmer if you have an adhesive body warmer attached there. So I usually go with that if it gets pretty cold. And then to cover my head, I have a brimmed beanie, 100% merino wool from Pnuma Outdoors. Compared to some of the First Lite ones I've tried, this one seems to be built a little bit heavier weight merino, so it's going to keep my head a little bit warmer. And if I do start to overheat, I can either just fold the hat up over the ears or even just pick it up and let it rest on top of my head until I start getting cold again. At a certain point, if it's really windy, I got to use some kind of a face mask too, and so I'll just typically grab one of those just cheap face masks that you can put over your face, and it has a Velcro closure in the back, and it might not be something that I actually wear while I hunt. It's just kind of a protective layer that I'll use to get from point A to point B. I have something else that I'll use once I get to the stand. Alright, let's talk about the feet a little bit more. I mentioned that I always only wear just 1 pair of socks. The reason I always just wear 1 pair of socks, whether it's really hot or it's really cold, is just because I found that I never get blisters when I do it that way, and I want there to be a good fit with the boot. So if I really oversize the boot and I wear multiple layers of socks, that boot's going to be able to slide around a little bit more, and it's not going to be as comfortable or as effective. So I just size my boot up a little bit. When it gets colder, I'll kind of show you what I would do. If I have a long hike in, I'm just going to wear my uninsulated boots. If it's a real long strenuous hike, I'm going to be burning enough energy moving through the hills or through the marsh or whatever that my feet aren't necessarily going to get cold while I'm moving with these uninsulated boots, and I'm going to be a lot more effective getting from A to B. If I don't have that far of a walk, or the walk isn't that challenging, then I'll basically go right to my heavy pack boots. And just to show you a size comparison, this boot is a size 11, made to be worn with a thinner sock, but I can make it fit with a heavier sock. And this boot is a size 12. So obviously a size 11 and size 12 isn't that big of a difference, but the extra size of this boot is all insulation. And when I wear just one heavy pair of socks, these boots fit really well. And if I were to go on a longer hike in and just wear those uninsulated boots to start with, I would pack these on top of the rest of my gear. I have tested these boots out too, which are the Cabelas lockdown boots. They have a 1200 gram Thinsulate. Great mid-season boot. They have basically the structure of a hiking boot, but then they have a waterproof gaiter that essentially goes up to around knee level. So I love them for mid-season, but I found that when when it gets cold like this, say, like the other day when I wore these boots just to try them out, I wore my single pair of socks. I had little heat warmers in there, or toe warmers in the boots, and the temperature got down to I think -8 by the time I got back to the truck. And it was about 45 minutes I could start to feel my toes get a little cold. After about an hour, I mean, they really went fast. They got cold and numb, and then took the entire walk back to the truck before I finally got the feeling back in those toes. So when it gets this cold, I really just have to go with those pack boots. So my first real heavy insulating piece of gear is the First Light Sanctuary bibs. If for whatever reason it's a really short, easy walk, open cover, I'll sometimes just wear these right from the truck. They do have excellent venting. I can basically zip these all the way up, but if I have to go through a lot of thorns or just heavy cover in general, a lot of times I don't want these things to get torn up, so I'll pack them in and just wear that nylon blend pant underneath as my outer layer while I'm walking. The next thing I'll put on is this big Cabelas MT50 hand warmer muff. The thing I like about this muff and muffs in general is that it allows me to switch to a lighter weight glove. This glove with the fingers cut off is basically the glove that I would wear throughout the rest of the entire season if I were using a trad bow with a leather tab, just to kind of minimize the amount of variables that change throughout the shooting season. Whereas if I were to use a compound bow, I would wear the heavier glove and just practice shooting with that heavier glove on and make sure I can still maintain my accuracy with that slightly different anchor. But then with a real light glove like this, you really need that muff to keep the hand warm throughout the duration of the hunt. And on this particular muff, there is a pouch on the front to stick in hand warmers. I don't necessarily always put them in here just because if I do have hand warmers in this front pouch, there's really a thin layer of fabric covering that, and I can feel the warmth on the outside. And what that tells me is that this muff allows the heat to escape when you put hand warmers in that pouch. So I'll just put my hand warmers directly in the same pouch portion that my hands would go in, and I'll either use the large chemical warmers, or I'll use the Zippo warmer, or I'll use a combination of the two. I've even used the electronic hand warmers. They seem to work all right as well. And I'll just stuff as many basically artificial heat sources in there as I can, because I want my hands to be warm fast, and I want this muff to be extremely hot, as hot as I can stand it. Now for my head, once I'm actually set up in the stand, if it's not windy at all, I can usually actually sit with just a hat like this for a fair while, maybe about an hour before my head really starts to get cold and my face starts to get tingly from the actual cold temperature. But eventually I do need something covering my face, and if it's windy at all, yeah, absolutely I need something covering my face. And what I really like is this First Light Tundra Balaclava. This thing has a soft shell outer, so it's a little bit noisier. It's a little bit heavier. You can't really hear much while you have this thing on, but it's extremely warm. You got a high pile fleece on the inside, but this front panel here that covers your mouth is actually a merino wool, so it lets the moisture transfer a little bit better. You don't get that cold and frost build up on your mouth like you would with a more conventional type of face mask. And then from here you can of course move that face mask down or up, and then I can take that brimmed beanie and put it over the top. And like I said before, I can't hear nearly as well with this thing on, but at a certain point when it gets cold enough, there's just not really much you can do about it. You just gotta keep the face warm. And of course, having this thing on does change a lot when it comes to shooting, so I have to absolutely practice with all this stuff on. I'm gonna start sweating if I keep all that on, so I'm gonna take that off real quick. For my upper body, I have essentially two garments that I could layer with now. I have the First Light Woodbury jacket, which is a great mid-season jacket. I'll use this for basically mid-October onward. It's a little bit too warm for an early season jacket. And then I also have this puffy jacket, which is the First Light Uncompahgre. And this is more of a Western garment. It's a little bit noisier of a fabric. It's not necessarily marketed to whitetail guys. So you might be asking yourself, well, why not just go with like a sanctuary jacket like you have with the Bibs? And that would be a little bit more efficient if that was all I did, going with something like a sanctuary jacket or something like a Cabelas Stand Hunter Extreme or something like a Sitka Incinerator jacket. But because I also hunt out west in addition to hunting whitetails, I'm not going to be bringing a Woodbury jacket on like an early season elk hunt, but I would bring this ultralight puffy jacket along with me. And so this combination allows me to kind of do all the things that I would want to do without just completely going overboard on cost. So if it's just a whisper quiet day, I'll wear this puffy jacket as kind of like a middle layer, and then I will wear the Woodbury over the top of it because the Woodbury is a lot quieter of a fabric. However, just in the way that I ordered these, the size of the Woodbury is a little bit smaller than the size of the puffy jacket, so this one fits better over this one versus the other way around. So if I'm gun hunting or if it's really windy and I'm not as concerned about noise, I'll wear this one and then the puffy over the top of it. But otherwise I'll just force the puffy to fit inside the Woodbury. Now, at this point you might also ask yourself, you know, with all these additional garments, the cost is adding up, why not just go with something on the order of like a heater bodysuit or an IWAM? And to be honest, if all I did was tree stand hunt, that would probably be a pretty good option at this point. But again, like I said, I'm not just tree stand hunting, I'm also saddle hunting. I could hunt off the ground, still hunt, where this overall system that I have is very versatile. I can do basically just about anything I would want to do, and I can fine tune it by, you know, removing the puffy and just wearing the Woodbury, or venting the Bibs a little bit. I don't think that a heater bodysuit style garment's going to work with a saddle. It's not going to work well if you want to be on the move, like if you wanted to still hunt through a bedding area. So like I said, this just gives me a lot more versatility. Now, if I were to hunt in even colder air temps, say you're up in Canada and there's, you know, -20 or -25 Fahrenheit temperatures and you're hunting, say, all day over a food source, you know, if I were to add another garment on my upper body, I'm not going to be able to shoot a bow very effectively just because of all the bulk. And at that point in time, then you really wouldn't have much other option than to go with an IWAM or a heater body suit. One alternative that I kind of want to look into over the next year would be like a battery heated vest. I like the idea of a vest more than I like the idea of a heated jacket, just because the vest I can kind of wear it as more of an underneath layer and still wear my traditional garments over the outside of it. And it's going to keep the bulk down while keeping my core a little bit warmer, and especially the bulk of the sleeves it's going to remove. So the idea would be maybe instead of wearing the puffy jacket and then the Woodbury and then still being a little bit cool, maybe I can just wear the vest and the Woodbury and even be warmer. So if any of you guys have any experience with those heated vests, I know they range in price. I've seen them as low as like $115 all the way up to over $200. I'd love to hear your experience with the reliability and just the overall warmth that you get from those. So you could leave those in the comments down below. But ultimately, yeah, that's my extreme cold weather layering system, and it works very effectively the way that I have it. And like I said, it's very versatile. I can tweak it basically from any temperature from 10 below all the way up to, you know, early season temperatures just by adding and removing garments. I hope this video was helpful for you guys. Thanks for watching. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below.